Hello. Hello, everybody. Lovely to see everyone arriving from all sorts of places, including Colorado, Tucson, Arizona, Nottinghamshire, Poole, London, Edinburgh, Shakespeare Country, Switzerland, and Seattle and Florida, and all over the place. County Tipperary and Lewis. Somebody's in Lewis. Hi. Down the road. That's great. Sunny Montreal and Salem, Oregon. I know there's a Salem in Massachusetts, but there must be one in Oregon too. Winchester, Newark-on-Trent, New Jersey. Great. Soggy, Northampton. Yes. Great. Lovely to see you. We'll do get comfortable and find a dry seat in this forest clearing. I don't know how the weather's been like with you, but around here we've had lots of rain, even a bit of thunder and lightning over the last few days, but then beautiful sunny patches. So this kind of, I guess you'd call it squally weather, squalls. And you might like to just check in with yourself, take this time when we're all gradually settling in to see how you feel, and maybe just type in a word to say how you feel, on the understanding that that can change and that you can type in that you're feeling one thing and a few moments later you feel something else. But there's a magic in words, there's a magic in articulation. Restless, even Purdue's feeling restless. Wonderful, blessed, grateful. Low energy, Darren. Yeah, it's that time of year, isn't it? Winding down, a little bit stressed from the university. Excited, having just written a new story. Hooray. Relieved, stuffy, cozy. Thankful for some autumnal weather finally. Yes. Content, peaceful, happy, calm and relaxed. A bit sad and depressed. Not ready to be sick again. Rainy here. Eager for my favorite holiday. Yes. Well, that's what I want to talk about. Like I'm at the cusp of something interesting. That's always a fascinating feeling, is it? Just being on the edge. You sort of know something's going on and you can't quite put your finger on it. Something's changing. And let's take this idea of the cusp, because it's interesting, you know, that we think a lot about the festivals, and then of course there's the time in between the festivals. So we're coming up to Samhain. Roma said that it's her favorite festival, and for many people, Ema at the end of her interviews with people every Thursday asks people what their favorite festival is, and a lot of people say Samhain. And you think they'd say, I don't know, the summer solstice or the spring equinox or something like that. No, but it's going into this dark time, a very magical time. And it strikes me that one way to look at going into a festival, it's like there's a kind of tide, and you build towards a festival, and then the wave breaks. And then the tide changes. So we're all on this tide together. If you're on the southern hemisphere, it's going towards Beltane. If you're in the northern hemisphere, the tide is moving towards Samhain. And let's tune into that tide now as I read your poem. Oh, to love what is lovely and will not last. What a task to ask of anything or anyone, yet it is ours, and not by the century or the year, but by the hours. One fall day I heard above me, and above the sting of the wind, a sound I didn't know, and my look shot upward. It was a flock of snow geese, winging it faster than the ones we usually see, and being the color of snow, catching the sun so they were, in part at least, golden. I held my breath, as we do sometimes, to stop time when something wonderful has touched us. As with a match which is lit and bright, but doesn't hurt in the common way, but delightfully, as if delight were the most serious thing you ever felt. The geese flew on, I have never seen them again. Maybe I will someday, somewhere. Maybe I won't. It doesn't matter. What matters is that when I saw them as through the veil, secretly, joyfully, clearly. That's such a wonderful poem. I picked up Roma's little booklet that she might talk about when she takes tea with the Druid next week, Walk With Me, which is a collection of poems to help us when we're accompanying somebody who's dying, who's moving to the other realms, to sustain ourselves and perhaps to help nourish them too. And it just seems such a beautiful, fitting poem, Snow Geese by Mary Oliver. There's a little bit that I don't quite understand. I'm probably being a bit dense. Maybe you can help me with this. It's the bit about the match. I held my breath as we do sometimes to stop time when something wonderful has touched us. I love that. And this is the bit I don't understand. As with a match which is lit and bright, but does not hurt in the common way, but delightfully. Does that mean doesn't hurt when you light a match and then it burns your fingers but it pins, or is she talking about the hurt of the brightness of the light? I'm not quite sure there. I think she must mean the brightness of the light, but because I've burnt my fingers on matches, I thought of that. If you understand, do tell me. But here's the piece I want to focus on here: is what matters is that when I saw them as through the veil. When I saw them as through the veil, secretly, joyfully, clearly. So there's this lovely idea of seeing through a veil. So you would imagine that it's not clear, but she's saying seeing through a veil, and I saw them clearly. It's like she's gone through the veil. The veil has been a medium that has allowed her to see more clearly. Sarah Meerkat says perhaps it's a love match. Oh, that's yes, that could be. That's a very interesting interpretation. Yes, the match is ephemeral, says Roma. Yes, I mean it's true that when you sort of kind of burn your hand with a match, it doesn't really hurt for that long, does it? You just Catherine says poetry is very confusing. Well, what I love about poetry is it sometimes walks that liminal place between a bit like song lyrics. You kind of listen to a song and it's wonderful, and then you stop and you think, what do they mean exactly? So seeing through the veil, and of course this reminds us of Samhain, because Samhain is traditionally talked about as the time of where the veil becomes thin, so we can see more clearly. And what I wanted to explore with you is this feeling that I feel very connected with at the moment, and I just wanted to share it with you and see if you're feeling the same way. Maybe you're not. Maybe it resonates. Maybe it doesn't. I'd just be interested. But it's been a very chaotic time in the world, as we all know. Lots of turbulence at all levels, really. And then as we move towards Samhain, really just in the last few days, I've been starting to feel this tremendous sense of calm, like this kind of eye in the storm calm. Somebody mentioned earlier on about feeling that the cusp of something really interesting is going to happen. So I feel this way, and I was opening to the feeling and just savoring it and kind of allowing it and sinking into it. And what came to me is, for me, this links so much with Samhain, the time of chaos, the time of a real sense of ephemerality, two people I know that have just passed away recently, for instance. So you get that real sense of the temporary nature of life and of the transience of life, and at the same time, there's a sort of peace. It's a bit like, even in crisis, not of course in the traumatic time of crisis when your adrenaline is flowing and it's just all awful and terrible and high strong emotions and all the rest of it. But perhaps in the times of crisis that are, say when somebody dies, for instance, let's take that as an example. There's this period of extreme emotions, of course, and great sadness and grief and feelings of loss and all the rest of it. But somewhere in that range of feelings, I have experienced at least a sense of peace. It's completely paradoxical. It doesn't make sense to the rational mind. It may not always happen. It may not be in your experience. But there's some of it, I think, is coming from a kind of radical acceptance. When something changes massively, I mean, resistance is useless. You can't deny the reality of what's occurred. And I think probably for a lot of the time, we're kind of negotiating with reality, kind of trying to bend reality to make it more palatable and for it to fit and for us to influence it and change its course and hold it back and do various things. And then when a crisis occurred and something is broken or somebody dies or something is finished or a job comes to an end or you leave the house for the last time, there's an inevitability about you can't change anything. And so at some level of the self and the soul, you surrender to it. And in surrender, there's a sort of peace that comes. Cal, Kai or Cal, my glasses aren't good enough, says the final falling asleep in this world is the awakening in the other world. We know it's the gateway, exactly. So the struggle stops, says Mari. We stop resisting, we let go. I agree, says Sable. Death can feel like a bit of a spectacle. It stops us in our tracks, makes us pause and surrender. I think it's that surrendering. And then what happens is the veil is open. The veil becomes thin. I think this is the connection with Samhain. You have this sort of process of chaos, turbulence, riding into the center of the storm, and then acceptance and surrender, and pop, you're through, and you're in this period of Samhain, and you can communicate with those on the other side. That's the idea of Samhain. Simone says it's like a wake-up call to the bigger picture. You open to the bigger picture. Yeah. This is why I think so many of us find Samhain magical, is because it opens us to the bigger picture. It lets us go through the veil. We surrender to something more than. And it's more than the seduction of the world of appearances. Summer is full of seduction, of colors and sounds and smells and movement and sociability and travel. Catherine, my husband recently passed away, and this is so true. It's so far beyond this world that you must trust it. Thank you, Catherine. Yes, thank you. Eric, gosh, so lots of very interesting comments here. Sorry, they come very fast on my feed. So she estimated that was one news is referring to it as going home. Yes, this real sense of going home. And there's Catherine Whitewolf's comment. Thank you, Catherine. Yes. Okay. There's a lot of very interesting comments, and I want to give them respect and attention. So I'm going to do that when we've finished, and I'll read through them with a cup of tea. And do the same if you're a viewer. The position I'm in, which you're not in, unless you happen to have two screens and you're watching YouTube and Facebook, is this Tea with the Druid actually goes through 4 feeds. So there are sort of 4 audiences all watching this at the same time. And I see all the comments aggregated, so I see them together, whereas you'll see a sort of more limited selection. Yes. So Amanda Wolf-Harris is mulling over my comments about the seduction of the senses. More than the seduction of the senses, yes. And it's an opening that teases the senses and seduces you into the bigger, deeper picture. Exactly. And that's, I think, the meaning behind the story of the 5 streams from the Well of Shagash in Ireland. So with all these ideas out here, should we go into a meditation? Let's see if we can go with this, if we can tune into this energy of this time. And my apologies to those of you in the Southern Hemisphere who are on a kind of different tide. But of course, there are deep interconnections between the opposite festivals. But for those of us in the Northern Hemisphere, here we are on October the 24th, moving towards the time at the end of the month, the time when we shift from autumn to winter, and where we get this shifts in the weather and more leaves are starting to fall. There's more golden and red trees. It's looking very beautiful. So let's, if you feel like it, the invitation is for you to come into the grove now. You might already be there in the sacred grove, this beloved place of the Druids, where we find ourselves surrounded by the most beautiful trees. And perhaps the trees are showing their autumn colors now. And perhaps there's a lot of moisture. Perhaps it has been raining earlier today, but it's dry now. The air is fresh and clear. And just find a comfortable place to sit. And tune into the ground beneath you. And you feel the ground beneath you. And already there's a covering of leaves on the ground. And you can feel the way the leaves are just slowly letting go themselves into the earth. And they'll gradually disintegrate to feed the soil beneath you. And you feel all that life in the soil, the way this richness is filled with life, with little worms and creatures, thousands upon thousands of these creatures. You sense all the moisture in the earth, the minerals, the rocks, the crystals. And you allow yourself to breathe in and then breathe out fully and deeply, just relaxing and letting go. Just allowing any tension you might have just to drift into the earth. And as you breathe in, you're just breathing in the smell of the earth and the stability of the earth. And then around you are the trees, and you sense their presence and their power. You sense them rooted deep in the earth. And you can almost see the roots of these trees deep, deep down in the earth, drawing up the moisture, being fed and all being connected together, this wonderful mycelial network. The tree roots, the fungi, the mushrooms, everything connected, exchanging and sharing between them. Sensing the trees around you, and you become aware of the sky above you. And as you breathe in the energy of the sky. And the energy of the sky flows down into you, meeting the energy of the earth within the center of your being. And you just allow a sense of that meeting without necessarily putting any words on it or thoughts, just feeling settled and balanced. And then just gently, if you wish, open your inner eyes in your meditation to see that some kind soul has made a little pile of dry twigs and dry leaves and mosses. And there's even a little box of matches. And so you take a match out of the box and experience the magic of striking that match. So the little flame bursts up from the match, which you look at. And then you hold it to the moss and the twigs. And you light this little autumn fire in the center of your grove. And you see the flames leaping up, their golden light, the same color as the golden leaves above you. And you smell the leaves and twigs as they start to burn. And you put your hands out and warm your hands by the fire. And then you look across the clearing and you see a tree that you may not have noticed before, but it's the most beautiful chestnut tree. And as you look up at it in all its beauty, a little cluster of chestnuts falls to the ground just beside you. And these are the varieties of chestnuts that you can eat. And so you just find that little crack in the husk. You feel the little prickles, but you manage just to open it up and to take out 3 chestnuts. You crack open 3 of them and you take out 3 chestnuts. And there's a little skewer there that you hadn't seen. And you are able to skewer these 3 chestnuts and to roast them on the fire if that's what you want to do. Just imagine that. And you notice now how you can smell the smell of this fire, of the twigs and the leaves, and then the different smell coming from the shells of the chestnuts that are starting to burn. And how interesting. And if you find it hard to imagine smells, just pretend that you can. Just say you could, perhaps, and just see if you can notice the difference between the smell of burning chestnut and the smell of burning twigs and leaves. In fact, you can probably find 3 smells. The smell of burning leaves, which is slightly different to the smell of burning twigs, which is different to the smell of burning chestnuts. And you take the chestnuts from the fire now and place them on the ground. Just let them cool a little bit as you just enjoy being warmed by the fire. Just being. And you might like to get a sense of whether you're alone in the grove or whether there are others with you. And now you find that you can handle the chestnuts, so you slide them off the skewer. You crack off the shell of one of them and eat a little bit of the sweet chestnut. And then you find that the husk of the chestnut, which is lying to one side with that lovely white pith, has gathered some water. There's a little pool of water, so you can take a sip of water. So this is like some kind of holy communion in nature. The flesh of the chestnut, the little sip of water. And feeling blessed by this food and this water. Blessed by the fire. Blessed by any companionship you might have found in the circle. Just imagine now that you're placing your hands on the ground, palms down. And I'll say that prayer we say in some of the Druid ceremonies. We swear by peace and love to stand, heart to heart and hand in hand. Mark, O Spirit, and hear us now, confirming this our sacred vow. May our lives be blessed. May all life be blessed. And may the land and the trees and this sacred place be blessed. And then you might like to bring your hands to your heart. And you might like to do that physically. And as you do that, you start to become aware of your physical body, feeling the warmth in your heart, knowing you can return to this sacred grove at any time, return to sit by the fire. And gradually your awareness of being in the sacred grove begins to fade as you become aware of being seated in front of your screen, fully present, here and now. So I hope you're still there. Somebody said that the screen froze, but other people seem to be. I think Pamela, that must have been your internet connection, because I think everybody's still here. Sean can still smell the chestnuts roasting on the fire. That's great. I hope I'll meet somebody selling chestnuts in England. You know, sometimes in the streets you find these guys. I'm sure in other countries too. You know, these guys roasting chestnuts, and you buy a little bag of them. I hope I meet one of those soon. So many autumn blessings to you. What I think is so beautiful about nature spirituality, about Druidry, is that when we allow ourselves to settle and to open, for a start, the simplest things give us pleasure and give us a sense of peace and calm. Connecting with moist leaves, with trees, with the air, the earth, simple things. And they act as doorways. Somebody earlier on was talking about the seduction of the senses and how, you know, they can also lead us deep. They can lead us deep. That's the extraordinary thing. It is seductive. You know, the taste of a sweet chestnut is a lovely seductive thing, but it's also leading you somewhere if you kind of track it and follow it. And what a tremendous kind of gift life is, that each of our senses is like a pathway to the divine. Stephanie sometimes thinks that I believe that eating is the pathway to the divine, because I love going to restaurants and having lovely food and all the rest of it. But eating is the pathway to the divine. Smell is a pathway. They're all pathways. And so many, many blessings to you. So I'm going to be in Holland next week. So Roma is going to be taking the Samhain session, because I think it will be Samhain, actually, won't it? I'll be in another country for Samhain. Yes, it's the 31st. So many, many blessings. And I'm going to read all your comments after I've said goodbye, and have a wonderful week. Much love and many, many blessings. Bye.